Ich glaube,
Bring
die
it
wollen es
up.
ihr einfach machen, dass sie 4 oder
Yeah,
5
yeah, yeah.
nebeneinander schießen.
Oh, shoot.
Got some collateral.
Oh, wow.
It's the fountain. It's got a hole.
It's hilarious.
So. Somebody wants to delay us.
All tactic covered.
Oh, wait.
To keep that.
Okay, now we're ready.
I don't know. I got water all over the floor.
Oh. Okay,
You want me to run and get paper towels, Lori?
Here's, find it.
Oh, that'll work.
Yes. Should we fix our camera?
I'm trying.
Oh,
The thing doesn't want one.
there it goes.
it's as good as it gets. It's messier than it gets.
It's just.
It's
just- Oh, I picked it up. I know. I see. Thank you so much.
All right. It is 6:36 PM on April 25th, 2024, and I'm calling this meeting of the Twin Cities German Immersion School Board to order. Good evening, directors, staff, and members of the public joining us in person and those watching online. Let's start with our roll call. And we are working without our executive assistant, but she's online. Julia, wie geht es dir? Was machst du hier heute? All right, I will call the roll. Director Albers,
Here.
Director Eberhard.
Here.
Director Hartman.
Here.
Director Hyde,
Here.
Director Kritzinga.
Here.
Director Reich,
Here.
Director Smaka,
Here.
Director Tesfacius.
Here.
Director Yamania,
Here.
and Chair Alcatude is here, and ex officio member, Executive Director Cleansing.
Here.
And Principal Elizabeth Sanfenig.
Here.
And our Director of Operations, Andy Nesbitt. Thank you for joining tonight.
Yeah.
All right, let's reflect on our mission, vision, and values. The mission of the Twin Cities German Immersion School is the innovative education of the whole child through German immersion. Our vision is andere hören, andere sehen, Welt offen denken and handeln. And our values are curiosity, kindness, challenge and support, intercultural engagement, and community. Next, I'll read our land acknowledgement. We acknowledge and appreciate that TCGIS is located on Wapekute, Dakota, traditional, ancestral, and contemporary homeland near Lake Minnewaca, in the land now known as Minnesota, Minnesota Mikoche. Our presence here is linked to generations of Wapekute stewardship over their land, as well as to the historical and ongoing injustices of settler colonization that impact Indigenous people to the present day. We are committed to understanding our role in this legacy and educating ourselves and our community about Indigenous history through continued mindfulness and engagement in and outside of the classroom. Okay. Can I have a motion to approve the prior month's meeting minutes?
So moved.
Thank you, Director Hyde. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Director Kritzinga. Any discussion or edits to the minutes from last meeting?
Yeah, I have no corrections.
No, if I looked right at Director
Yes, I-
Hartman.
I watched the video last. The attendance needs to be updated. Director Smaka was not here, but Directors Jimenez, Persinga, and Tesfacius were. And then also, I was not, but I already took my name off an earlier draft, but in number 3, the second was made by Director Hyde, not by me.
Be hard to do since you were
I
out of
was
the country.
far away.
Okay, Director Albers, did you get those notations?
No, I can't do these. Thank you.
All right, any other corrections?
No, it's amazement.
All right, hearing no other discussion, all those in favor of approving the minutes from the last board meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve today's meeting agenda?
So move.
Thank you, Director Hartman. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Thank you, Director Reich. I'll note that we don't currently have a recess scheduled in our agenda. We'd like to add one.
Yeah. I think so.
Okay. Perhaps after the principal's report.
That sounds like a great idea. Sure,
Okay.
I'll get to it.
All right, we're adding a recess to the agenda after the principal's report, and that'll be a 15-minute recess. So that is a friendly amendment to the agenda. Any other amendments? All those of approving the agenda as amended, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Thank you. Okay. First on the agenda is open forum for public comment. Could we have a sign-in sheet for our guests and for, is
I put it back there.
there anybody here that would like to do public comment? Thank you. Okay. No public comment tonight. We'll close the public comment portion of the meeting. And that brings us to our special recognition. And tonight the board is very pleased to welcome and recognize our two candidates for the board. And I'm going to turn around since they're here. Hello, Jens Lindner and Anna Miller. So thank you so much, people, for volunteering to run for the board in the next election. And we look forward to all of your input and contributions. And we promise not to make it too difficult. Director Kensing, would you like to make any comments?
I just want to thank you for stepping up and volunteering. Charter schools in Minnesota do not exist without the volunteerism of people like you. And very few people get to get the chance, I think, to step up and do this for various reasons. But it's an honor for those schools that get to have your leadership. There's a lot of work that has to be done, and the boards are kind of the unsung heroes of schools. And so just thank you for taking the time. Both of you are such excellent candidates for the board. We're very, very lucky to have you. Thank you.
Thank you again.
And that goes for all of you too, that are staying, and those who've done your duty and are leaving.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is our staff council presentation of the staff survey summary. Welcome, Frau Gelhoff and Frau Stolzenbach. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Will we see the slides on the screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Just a second.
Sorry.
Spring doch hier zu mir rüber, oder?
Ja, kann ich drauf zeigen.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, well, first of all, thank you for having Juliane Stolzenbach and me tonight here. Juliane is an elementary school teacher currently in 2nd grade. I'm a middle school teacher and I teach 6th and 8th grade in German at the moment. This year we were very happy that we were able to do that survey together with the board and the admin team, and that we could look at results together and then present them to the staff. So it's been presented to staff already just before spring break. And whoever couldn't be there, we also send out the slides to everyone.
Director Albers, I'm not seeing the slides. It
Mm,
got pulled off.
Okay, are they back if I bring it over? Or no?
Yep.
Okay, so it's just my entire desktop. Cool.
Are you able to do a larger view?
Yep,
See
I'm
das schon
fine.
hier?
Okay.
Here.
Ah, sehr schön.
It's in a PDF format,
Yeah.
which it's not. Oop, here.
There we go.
There we go.
So that's basically what I said already, so you can go to the next one. One question that I'm going to present is those who agree they feel supported by supervisor increased from 60% in fall to 75% mid-year. And those who slightly decreased and those who disagree increased. So we can see mid-year 24, we have some who didn't feel supported, but definitely the majority was over 80% that felt supported, and that's what you can see with the green color. And yes, it's a bit lower than in fall, but in general, it's still a good result. And definitely more staff feel supported by administration student behavior than in the fall and in last year. So you can see that here 80% is green versus fall 23, it was less than 50%, and in fall 24, it was a bit below 80%. And the communication is definitely has become way more effective or similar to the fall and improved definitely over the last year. So you can see the red is definitely going back, even though we still have some red of people who strongly disagree, but a majority is over 80% who strongly agrees or slightly agrees. So that's definitely also an improvement. And those who agree and slightly agree that journal immersion is implemented well at TCGS increased from 48% last spring to 60% mid-year. And that definitely is a progress that we can see to, that we reach our goals better. So you can see we have now 60% in spring, and before we had less than 50%. So at least, 50% strongly agree or slightly agree. And then 40% slightly disagree or strongly disagree.
Okay, I'm taking over the part around behavior. And one of the new questions this year was like, have you been involved in a physical confrontation incident with a student during the school year? And as you can see, in all roles, like, oh yeah, you are my assistant, perfect. As you can see, like SPED is around 82%, ES 75%, ES and MS teacher who are teaching both is 35%, support staff 25%, and around 8% in middle school. So all roles pretty much have experienced physical incidents. But we had another question, do you feel safe around the students in your classroom? And 90.9% still feel safe in their classroom and only 9.1% don't. And in the little box, you can see that the people who answered with no is a 3 out of 12 ES teacher, 1 out of 11 EA or SPED teachers, and 1 out of 12 MS teachers. And the question was, have you always filled out an incident report when a student was physical with you? 16 said yes, 10 no, so 40% are not filing incident report.
But that incident report was implemented later, so
Yeah.
it wasn't there the whole school year, so that is something we don't know. Didn't they fill it out because it wasn't there, or didn't they fill it out even though it was there?
December.
Yeah. So then the next slide, we asked about how much instructional time do you lose during a lesson on redirecting or reteaching behavior? And the majority answered like 30%, up to 30% of instructional time. In ES, it's around 20 to 30%. In MS, it's 10 to 20%. Then we have both teaching middle school and elementary. The biggest part is below, the next is below 10. Yeah, so, and EA and SPED is around 10 to 20, some are less than 10, but even it's 40 to 50. So yeah, it's all over the place. Then we have new support systems in place. One of them is like call if you need help around behavior in your classroom, or sensory stations, calming rooms. Then we have the new office referral form as a Google Doc, and the buddy teacher system. And as you can see, the first one, like it's effective, helpful, someone effective, helpful is the biggest chunk. So it's not 100%, there has to be a mistake over there, but you can see the pie chart says that's helpful. Then sensory station, calming room, 83% say it's helpful or somewhat effective. Then the office referral form, 70% think it's helpful, somewhat helpful. And the buddy teacher system that you can step out of your classroom and another teacher can take over if you need a break. 72% think it's effective or somewhat effective. Then a question was, how often has admin follow up with you after an office referral? So in 38%, that happens every time. 38% said it happens some or most of the time, and 24% reported that it happens rarely or never. And admin has since added a tool to monitor and increase follow-up with educators. Then we ask about how effective is redirecting or reteaching. And you can see immediate changes or long-term changes. And I think overall we can see that it's typically effective, and we only had by the long term a little bit of never. So it's pretty much helpful in all long term and short term. Sometimes we need the parents. So after parents are contacted, does student behavior change? 18% said yes, a lot, 70% yes, a little, and 13% not at all. So it's effective, but we are not reaching everybody. But I think that's normal. And then in general, how is parent communication affecting your mental health? 63% think it's positively or somewhat positively, and 38% somewhat negatively. So parent communication can too often negatively affect mental health of educators.
And then the staff volunteer time on TCGS committees, lead after school activities, and often work outside of contracted hours. The majority feel the overall workload and volunteer commitments are sustainable through the rest of the school year. And you can definitely see, so almost 65% do regularly volunteer time serving on a board or school committees or whatsoever. And 35.2 say yes, and 65% say no. So it's a minority that dedicates their time to it. And then on average, how many days per week do you work outside of your contracted hours? Most teachers between 1 to 2 days or 3 to 4 days, that is about 61.8%, 27.3% say every school day, and 10.9% say never. So on average, we work at say like 2-3 weeks days per week more than our contracted hours. And then are you contracted for after school assignments such as leading enrichment activities, coaching, etc.? The big majority says no, over 80%, and then 18.2% say yes. And then I feel that my overall workload and volunteer commitments are sustainable through the rest of the school year. 48.1% said agree, and 22.2% said slightly agree, which is over 70% basically agree it's okay. 11.1% disagrees, and then agree, we don't see a number, but that is slightly disagree. This is strongly disagree, and 9.2% say strongly agree, so the majority again is okay with the workload. And then half of the respondents report maintaining at least 70% of their prep time, a third report losing 30 to 50% of their prep time, and 1/5 report losing more than half of their prep time. So this is what you can see here. That is more than 50%, 40 to 50%, 30 to 40%, 20 to 30%, and then less than 20%. And that is usually through subbing or IP meetings or something like that. Yeah, so there were suggested action items. So administration, make it easier for EAs to access to Google Forms for discipline. So EAs can also put in concerns or things that happen in the classroom. Provide professional development and on compartmentalizing work and personal life. Communicate the availability of online counselors as a TCGS benefit. Determine how to build more prep work time into contracted work hours. Communicate resources for teacher licensure guidance and support. Provide specific training on immersion education best practices. Provide staff training about the role of the school board to address misunderstandings. Create a working group around discipline, student behavior, and how best to handle it in the school. Help bring the conversation to everyone's awareness. Create a place to bring those concerns in.
Okay, and then we have suggested action items for staff. Mission task forces report out at June board meeting with admin. Report all physical incidents to enable follow-up from administration. Take advantage of online counseling available through TCGIS benefits. Participate in training to support immersion education in all staff roles, including English speakers. Then the staff council, share meeting summaries after meetings with admin to make all staff aware of the feedback loop and actions. Parents council message to parents about how parent reinforcement of behavior expectations helps teacher in the classroom. Provide parent support in navigating children's technology use and how it can impact behavior. And the board monitor progress toward implementation of action items and strategic milestones. Continue conducting probe surveys to gather timely information relevant to governance. Questions?
Thank you so much for the presentation. Are there questions?
These suggested items came through the survey, right? They were comments left by the people who conducted the survey, right? What are your takeaways from this in order to improve the situation?
So our takeaways were definitely, I would say, that it's great that we could do that survey together as a team, because that way we could make sure that the board, admin, and we as staff council see the answers, and then put it together in a nice survey and have actually action items. So for example, the staff council is meeting next week, and afterwards we are going to share whatever we've talked about with admin. That is something that we're going to do. I think staff is already reporting physical incidents. I don't know how much they reported. That is something that admin might be able to answer. And training to support immersion education. I think as soon as that training is coming, people will participate in it. Yeah.
So the action items came out of a group discussion with the staff council, administrators, and representatives from the board. Director Albers and Director Eberhard, Director Reich, and myself. So we had all read the comments and looked at the data that we just shared. So the action items are our interpretation of what actions would help address what we saw. Any other questions?
There's an ask for the board to follow up. Should we figure out when we check in on how the actions are going? A timeline, is it a few months, next school year? What makes the most sense for a follow-up?
Well, so we already are monitoring our strategic milestones on a regular basis. And I think if action items come out of, for example, the mission task forces that report out to us in June, then we could set a cadence. You know, hopefully the task forces are telling us when they expect to implement different initiatives. And so then we can take that report and just track it to make sure it's on track and happening. Director Abraham?
Well, that was my question too. I mean, I was part of the people who put this together and talked about it afterwards, but I don't think we talked about a timeline of like when, because it's a pretty long list of what everybody's supposed to act on.
Mhm.
By when, like, are we expecting things to be implemented?
And I'm not even saying like they need to be done by X day, just a check-in of how's it
Mm.
going, right? If we need to
Mhm.
pivot, we could too.
Well, so a lot of these are things that are ongoing, like if you have a physical incident, then do the report, right? Parent council, we need to reach out to parent council to ask them maybe to send messages after their next meeting. I think they meet May 13th. So we could give them that timeline. Which other ones, could you scroll up to the administrations?
So in terms of a cadence, I think for following up, I know staff council, we have a staff council liaison, so there can be a conduit to kind of report, to follow up on how things are going through that liaison. Same with the parent council. And I know with the milestones, I mean, those are just something we have regular check-ins with the board anyway, built into the schedule. So those are a couple of just embedded systems we already have in place for following up on these. The question might be, I mean, I expect administration to take these and kind of embed them in our processes. And I think the question might be just getting the communication to the parent council to make sure they know what's expected. So either a liaison or our admin has a liaison too, so we could, one of those can do that.
So if any of these actions need to happen in the next school year, we should get them in our milestones so that we can see them and track them.
Yeah, I think that's,
Could you speak to what has already been implemented? And then maybe we need, like, has a working group around discipline it already, or should we put a timeline on that? The very last
We
one.
already have a student support team that does that work. I think that we would just have to extend the invitation to more Gen Ed staff. So that's an easy ask. Communicating resources for teacher license guidance and support. I actually did that for the first time for new teachers. Couple of them here got it, but I don't know that all did, so that was an easy one too. And the parent council reached out to us for an all council meeting. There is no date yet. I don't know who's going to put it together. I think everyone's waiting on everyone, so I guess if someone has to send out, the proposal for the time and date. And I think then many of these action items could be talked through or could be on the agenda on some of them at least.
To Karen's point about the staff liaison, do you think like a check-in on these action items, it's something we can put on the agenda for staff council meetings? Every meeting, so then we can like just kind of talk through and then I can have something to bring back on how the staff's feeling about it. Great.
I think some of these require milestones and some don't, so I think we just need to get that to the board next time.
Mhm.
Quick question on this. What is the guiding document that allows for this exchange? Like, how is it that teachers have this request, and then how is it that administration is required to, you know, what's guiding this exchange? Is there a document? Or is there a contract, an agreement?
It's a good question. I think this is the document. I also think they say suggestive. And some of them are determined, and I wrote down, that this sounded like a summer thing. It's already May, we've kind of got the next 6 weeks mapped out. This looks like a great admin retreat for the middle of June, when we sit down and we look at reflection and feedback and start to plan forward. And then I also wrote down action items from staff survey in milestones. So I think that's exactly, figure out which of those is a low hanging fruit and we can just check off with the process. And which of them need to be milestone.
Mhm. All right,
Just one former comment, can you scroll down to one of the pie charts? Oh, scroll up, I'm sorry. There's all that white space in that page, on that page. And you make the font so small that nobody can read it. I mean, there should be, you know, you got all that room and you should be able to make that a little bit more legible. Just for future reference.
If you make it like,
noted. So I put this presentation together on my volunteer hours. So thank you.
I was gonna thank
And
you.
I'm rolling off in 2 months, so.
So am I.
When you copy Google Forms, that's the format that it gives you. It's not adjustable.
Then you pick a different format.
Yeah, when I try to do those pie charts, I end up making a text box. But choosing my own font size and like pasting it on top, that's very tedious.
Yeah, that's why I put the conclusions at the top and then the data are just there supporting it if you really need to be convinced. Any other comments or questions?
I had one last one. One of the takeaways or action items was to continue with the pulse surveys under the board.
Mhm.
First, just comment, maybe there can be a question in one of the pulse surveys about the follow-up to this or something. We can think about how to word that and everything later. And since admin staff council and the board kind of worked on this together, is the anticipation that all of those groups will participate in the pulse surveys together, or is it still going to be a board thing?
I think it worked really well to collaborate, so the pulse surveys could go forward and I think that would be the best way to do it. We had started the pulse surveys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think establishing a set cadence too would be really helpful so that we can, I know we got a little bogged down with like breaks and stuff this year. So it'd be nice to have a set cadence, like, yep, at the third week of September, we do the fall one, and then we also are getting that apples to apples year over year comparison.
Yeah.
So that would
You
be a
think-
good goal as we continue to evolve the process.
Yeah, would it be too much to think about adding like a subcommittee underneath the communications committee for like quarterly meetings on setting the pulse survey and inviting a couple of the staff council reps to be on that, as well as a couple of board reps and admin?
Was that something that we were kind of doing with the committee that I was running at the beginning of the year in terms of the?
Yeah, the
search
pulse
and then
survey started through the hiring committee,
Yeah,
so.
and then we
I think
it talked
would
about
make
making the,
sense.
turning the hiring committee into something
Yeah,
kind of like that anyways. So,
it's kind of there.
yeah, I guess, so maybe we revamp that, and if staff council has people that are willing, invite one or two of them to participate on like a quarterly basis.
I just have a task force for the staff service. Good idea.
All right, any other comments? All right, Thank you again, Frau Gilhoff and Frau Stolzen.
And thanks
Julie.
to, yeah, Julie, Emily, Kevin, and the admin people that all collaborated on that. That's very good work. And very important information. I'm sure it took a lot of work to do.
All right, next on the agenda is our director's report. I am a little concerned about the number of slides and then the allocation of 30 minutes. Can you think about that?
I think some of them we can skip. Because they're readable.
We left a lot of things in the section that is from me just in so that directors could read it at their leisure. But when we added some of the other things, so we knew that we were gonna have to glean.
Okay,
We're gonna glean.
so there's an hour combined for directors and principals report.
Keep an eye on my watch. And you, if I skip over something, just ask me later.
Will do. Director Cleansing, you have the floor.
This is fun to figure out after.
Just so you all are aware, we have a lot of wonderful staff at TCGIS that contribute to this report. I'll try to mention them all as we go through it, but it says the executive director's report, but it's really the report to the administration and office, all the people who contribute. So this is just a quick graph of where bus donations are at, that we take in those donations to try to make up the gap between the transportation aid we receive and the cost of the contract. So as you can see for the month of the recurring donations are in orange and the total is in blue. So we did have a significant uptick in those donations in March. But they've been pretty steady. So those are the monthly totals.
Director Cleansing, do you have an idea of how we're doing on our annual fundraising?
Can I provide that next time? Or
Sure.
Attendance report, overall attendance is at 92.8%. Middle school's at 93.85. And the elementary school at 92 with an overall 94%, which is pretty solid. Grade 7, sorry, is the winner this month. We really should have some sort of. Yeah, every month somebody's got the highest overall attendance, some grade, so this month it's grade 7. All right. Enrollments currently is at 571, really no huge changes since the last time. And we now have 97% of our intent to returns in, applications at 98%. And then we are we have 3 full kindergartens currently enrolled. Those are not just offers out, but actual enrollments. First grade's 57. So that's looking a little bit like it might be a 2-section, unsure. Because 7, not saying that we'll what I'm trying to say is we might lose a couple because that can happen. So then if we get a little low enough, we might be at 2 sections, so. Anyway, 605 is the total right now of people enrolled for next year. And Frau Zenfennig is in the process of calling all the folks who said maybe. And making sure that we answer all of their questions. And sometimes they change their maybes to yes. We got 3 maybes changed
I
to
got
yes?
3 this week, 3
this week.
and 0 no's.
Yeah. So sometimes they change to no, or we get more information that helps us understand it's a no. Some people say, well, we're moving, so that helps. So this is the chart about that helps us think through how many maybes, how many, if we have 50% of our maybes leave, and none of the haven't responded, that's what the NAs mean. If we have the no responses, leave, or no application, or no commitments, leave, then, each of those columns helps us kind of figure out where between all of the maybes leaving and all the maybes staying might we land for enrollment. So somewhere between 557 and 605, but probably closer to 581. So these are some of the potential, if we have a retention rate, that's where you can kind of chart for you to look it up. You can skip this. And then our financial indicators, we don't really have an update since last time I talked to Kelly. I think she said she's working on something for the next meeting. But our enrollment hasn't changed and our working budget hasn't changed a lot. So this is really kind of stable for now until our next meeting. We'll have an update.
Director Cleansing.
Yeah.
I had a thought as I was driving here about our DSCR.
Yep.
And I'm wondering if it's possible, so I understand that the building company currently owes the school money. Like 200,000 or something.
Yep.
Could we say, we'll take a payment of that now, please, and get that influx and then get our DSCR up above 1?
Oh, I like your driving thoughts. I'm gonna look into that.
But that's not revenue.
Yeah,
That's just a receivable and a payable on both sides, so that's not revenue.
It's already a-
it's already recorded.
Okay,
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
yeah, you're right.
That's so silly. Sitting there,
I know.
If
but
we
it's not-
capitalize some of our fund balance, that might change our, improve our DSCR. And capital investments improve those payments. So that's,
is there, so this is going down a
that's
rabbit
your
hole.
playground.
I was just gonna say, is the playground count for that?
It does, which we're gonna talk about.
Okay.
Playgrounds and bleachers. We'll be capitalizing about $235,000.
See, there's a 12,000.
There you go.
Okay, carry on. Thank you.
It all worked out in the end.
We still need our DSCR up to 1.
Where your bottle.
This is me,
It's already recorded.
right?
This is you.
Okay, yeah, couple of academic updates. Sam Brown spent spring break reworking our curriculum to get students ready for advancing into accelerated math at Central. He found out about midway through the year that Central was changing their math programs, and what he had developed was no longer gonna get our kids to where they needed to be. So we need to improve that pipe. You know, we see them as German colleagues, but they are clearly not seeing us yet as math colleagues. But he spent the summer working on an 8th grade unit or packet that will get kids ready to take accelerated math at the advanced level for 9th grade. Co-teaching is still on for school year 24-25, yet to be determined about where it's gonna fit, still based on student need. IEPs will wrap up at the end of the year, and then we'll assess that in the spring. I'm sorry, yeah, at the end of the year. Elective survey went on the Roon brief today. That was a milestone. Summer school, we've got 4 teachers and 2 EAs, which is amazing. Students have been selected and families are being notified. Summer school is gonna go from 6:24 to about 7:19. This is not to be confused with ESY, which is a special education program. This is used. Okay, on to some screener data. We start with the FastBridge, which is the one that assesses math. It's Common Core, not Minnesota standards, just to make sure that we're clear on that. This is the one that measures success, whether students will be at grade level by the end of the school year. What's important here is all the green and the blue. This is from EduClimber as Esther Noy continues to learn all the tricks and tools in EduClimber. The entire academic team becomes more knowledgeable, and this is the fun stuff that we can do. Next slide will show a little more detail. The smaller number, the 6, is the number in that set. And then the larger number is the medium score. And what you want to see is that the score, the column on the left, you'll see the increase on average increase to the winter score. For the most part, this is typical to what we see every year. This snapshot, if you took this from year to year, would look almost exactly the same. So we feel like we're really on track with previous years. Next slide. This is the benchmark report, and so you can see the drops from fall to winter, winter to spring are pretty similar. We do see a little bit of a drop every year. The test does not stay the same. The test continues to grow, so it's not the same test. Next slide. This is from Dr. Jessie Kemper, who is our data analysis at the U that we work with. And she explained that dip. She said that it's based on Common Core. We teach Minnesota standards, so that could be partially due to a difference of sequencing. We get to something later than Common Core does. For those students performing below benchmark at fall screening, it's also possible that the gap in achievement will continue to widen. And so this is where ADSYS comes in, because that is the team that uses this data primarily. And we're looking for anything over 20%. 20% is also the same marker for who we get possibly into ADSYS. Sometimes we go up to about 25. It depends on the number of students, but those are the things that we're looking for. This is reading, same deal. Look at all that blue and green, nationally or above. These scores are going to be important for a couple of slides a little bit later on too, but if you look at the blue and the green, we're phasing out of the term college pathway. We don't love that term because there are other pathways in life, but these are the categories formerly known as college pathway. So the amount of red on the screen is really tiny, and that's really great. Next slide, please. What's important here is, oh, that's not the slide that I have next. Here we go. This one has a little bit larger gap. If you look at the very right, that 89 to 84 is something that the ADSYS team is keeping an eye on. It's not an area of concern just yet. We will mention that this particular test or assessment was taken the day after History Day, when a lot of our kids were out until 9:30, and so that's something we might want to take a look at next year when we're scheduling assessments. So for right now, we are not concerned yet. We are keeping an eye on it, but that is a bigger dip than we've seen. This will tell you the projection versus the realized, and the green was such a close projection, you can't even see the dotted line. That's the German CBM for 22, 23 in the middle. And you can see the orange, we are trending off, way off of the last 2 years. So German fluency is increasing. Remember, at the first grade, fluency is a good indicator, or comprehension is a good indicator of fluency.
Question, is that the top orange dot, is that a predicted
That's
data
predicted
point?
for spring.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, and that is happening May 15th or something, like second half of May. English CBMs. This is interesting because remember, we don't teach English until 3rd grade. So lots of red here, some green and blue. And then if you look at the next slide, you can see how the amount of red is decreasing as we get to 4th grade. In 2nd grade, no English. 3rd grade, English is introduced and scores double. And then if you remember the one that we saw where it was 5th through 8th grade, pretty much everyone is nationally or above nationally. So that's that familiar tale that we tell about immersion kids having setback at the beginning and then meeting or exceeding same peers. So we use this to decide who's going to get more help through ADSYS, and I think we all probably know that already. Limited amount of resources, I think we're going to say. This one, I think you can read on your own. There's some really fun stuff happening, field trips and things like that. And if you go to the next slide, some great pictures of Catherine with a pie in her face and me kissing a lizard, so fun stuff happening.
Because why?
That was for a readathon, thanks Director Cleansing. We had a readathon and the kids read a bunch of minutes, I don't remember the exact amount, and so we did fun things, it was great.
Because they got to the right amount of minutes.
They read the right amount of minutes. Yeah, I don't remember that number. We did our sessions again this year with Clarissa Herman. Next slide. Yeah, so some German immersion stuff. Gap exchange leaves in T minus less than 2 days. It's fine. It's doing fine. Herr Eberhard, Director Eberhard led a Kappa model workshop, which was well attended. I checked. I met with Ayumi Stockman, and she's the world languages ed specialist at MDE. And she's going to give us the world language proficiency certificates for students graduating in 8th grade because of the DSD1. So this is great. This is not for credit because only high school kids can get credit. It's a little bit of a token certificate, but it's a certificate that indicates a really important step and that they're on the right path towards receiving graduating credits. Should I talk about MDE right here? Sure, why not? In 2024, there is a dual language immersion conference, which we're gonna hopefully send some people to. I met with Amy Young and she has us on this listserv where we're getting all of these dual language conferences. She gave me the immersion concept template. And Kat and Gilhoff and I are gonna do some PD on 524. The German immersion task force is gonna work through the template so that we can determine things like language allocation. It's something that's good to reinforce our commitment to the community around German immersion. When are we using English? When aren't we? What subjects? Things like that, to get that down in writing in an official document so that it's not just wishy-washy sort of, we could just change things. We'll make some community commitments on that. So stay tuned to more on that immersion template. This is a milestone. We were tasked with creating some German immersion features, and so Frau Pusto and Frau Kuhler and a couple of tiny helpers made this German immersion feature. A word wall is an immersion strategy or an immersion technique. You put the words up that you're learning on the walls. I don't know if there were other people that I see. Maybe there were other people involved that should be. Juliana Schulzenbach also. So thanks to those teachers for that. Let's see, National History Day reached the state competition. 6th graders published a book. That was really great. The Zeitung was in the Rundbrief last week, and you can get that link in the principal's message and read the really awesome online papers that Herr Eberhard's class has done. This is a picture of Herr Saunders' class doing science experiment Freitags. And the election survey, like we said, is going out. We'd like a little bit more information so that we can stay on mission, and then we can do some planning this summer, Esther and
I. Quick staffing report, Julia Henriksen is moving on. She's gonna move to Georgia and is not going to stay with us. She has been remote since November, and I think that wasn't the easiest job to do remotely. So she was great at it, but she just would like to, she's gonna move on. So Deanna Irwin also departed April 5th, though that was the date right before spring break. So Christine Foss is going to do 0.2 general ed social work duties. And Catherine Radke is going to supervise Christine in that work. Because Catherine Radke got her principal license this winter, so. And then we did send offer letters out to teachers on April 5th, just letting them know about positions that they would have, so that if we were reducing any FTEs or saw some reductions in the enrollment, that they would have an opportunity to be able to look at other schools or districts if needed. However, those offers are kind of just currently recognizing where their current salary is out at until we get finalization on the negotiations. And then we'll send out offer letters with the actual salaries when those are done. Recruitment and outreach events, we have these are new families going to play dates. All new families receive postcards handwritten. Thank you, I think Lindsay and Kirsten might have had some help with, done some
I
of
did
that.
some of those too.
Did you do, Julie? Thank you. Anyone else? The first play date was in March. They had over 20 new families come, and they had one March 24th. The next one is this Saturday. They're gonna be monthly until September. We are really trying to look at the recruitment process as something that is continual until this family is part of, you know, attending school. So just because they filled out the enrollment paperwork, we can't count on them we can't count on them changing their mind in the summer. So we're gonna do everything we can to make sure families do not change their mind. And that we engage them in the community so they feel like they belong with us now.
Esther Noy is starting, I don't know if I told you, a kindergarten website that they'll mail out to all the kindergarten families with readiness stuff. So they can stay
Perfect.
engaged with the website.
Perfect.
It's
So,
awesome.
yeah, so we're trying to, you know, do all sorts of new things that haven't been done before. And then we started offering weekly tours right now through the end of the school year while school's still in session. We usually did them monthly or bi-weekly up until now, but we're gonna try to get some out weekly, and there's somebody every week. That's a little video of one of these play dates. They've been rainy or really cold, so they've ended up in the gym both times. We also advertise TCGIS at the GAI German Business Leaders event. Here's an example of some of the table tents we had at that event. We have new yard signs that have arrived. Some of you have taken them. Thank you. Those of you online who want to get some, please, please, please pick up a yard sign and consider putting it in your front yard. Graduation signs are our next project. We also have kindergarten yard signs front and back that you can see here. Hurrah, ich bin ein Kind. Kindergarten Kind. And then we have other ones that are more general for other families. Wir lernen mit Kopf, Herz und Hand. Educating the whole child. We also have ads running online on social media. These actually are animated. They do things, but they don't do them on here. You can't see the animation, so that's fun. Recruitment and outreach events, grandparents, cafe clutch. Thank you, all of you involved in that. It was such a great event.
So fun.
Over 100 grandparents. 150 RSVP.
134, I think, ours.
134 attended. That's a do again. It was wonderful. We had the used German book sale today, actually. We have Deutsche Tage at GAI, June 8th to June 9th. Then the happy hour coming up on May 3rd, the Como D10 picnic party May 4th, the Midtown Global Market event May 10th with ongoing tabling at that event. And contact Paige if you want to participate, because she's always collecting volunteers. Mhm.
Is there a separate presentation for the labor negotiations?
yeah. Can you do the new one?
Yeah, it's the class size one, right? Or no?
Is that
No.
what's next? I don't think so. I think it's
The class size later.
labor negotiation.
Yeah, labor negotiation. The one, I just threw you one in an email that updated the enrollment.
Oh. Got it. I am not Yulia. I want her to know. I'm trying.
We appreciate you, Emily.
I'm
We
trying.
do.
And so, okay, hold on. There we go. This one.
Thank you. So, we did start negotiating, the school started negotiating with the teachers union for Twin Cities German immersion in, the fall, of this year. And we made a proposal to the board. Both sides have made proposals to increase teacher pay. But we're still in ongoing negotiations. And so, and we meet about weekly is where we've been since March 4th, with a couple of weeks that we've not met. Sometimes we meet in person, sometimes online. What we're gonna present today is the administrative proposal, the school's proposal, the board and the admin proposal to the union. Just to keep everybody updated. And yeah, we'll just give updates every week, every month. I mean, hopefully by next month, we won't have an update. The update will be we're done. So we'll see. But next slide. So our goal is to create stability and sustainability with this proposal for fiscal year 25 and beyond. There was in the strategic plan as early as 2020, some funding constraints that were recognized. So this has been a long time plan of the school to look at how to make sure that we are rewarding and it's incentivizing our teachers while still being able to pay our bills and keep in line with expected revenues. And one of the things that we know of has happened this year is some substantial inflation that's being experienced. It's continuing even to 2023. This is language from the strategic proposal revision plan. The legislature did change school funding in 2023 for a 4% increase for 23-24 and a 2% increase in 24-25. But you're gonna see in some of our slides why unfortunately Twin Cities German Immersion did not experience that increase. Mostly it's because with enrollment being slightly under lower than it was the year before, the increase got wiped out. So going forward, we're expecting from the legislature increases of about 1 to 3%. That's what they've told us. We have fixed revenue sources. That's just the reality. Enrollment has stabilized at about 585 over the last 5 years, falling kind of short of enrollment projections. It doesn't mean we can't get up to 640, but we have seen a trend over the last 5 years of around 585. We're funded at about 20% less than traditional districts with an obligation. We have an obligation to stay in business. So some traditional districts do go into statutory operating debt in order to sometimes pay their bills. And the state will back them up. Charter schools, that won't happen. We actually will get closed down by our author. So that's what I mean by our obligation to stay in business. We have an obligation to balance our books, and we won't have there's no emergency plan to keep us open other than our own plans of us sitting here. The existing salary schedule does outpace enrollment revenue and the cost of living revenue adjustments that are predicted. Not the kind of statement I want to share. It's just the reality. It's not like opinion. It's just looking, the graphs all show it. And the graphs from 2020 show it too. We're gonna see one of those in a bit. We do not have any taxing authority. A lot of school districts will, if they want to increase faster than the rate that the state is gonna pay them, traditional districts will go out and try to pass the levy. And oftentimes it will pass, sometimes it doesn't. Some districts get levy aid that will sometimes make up for that. But we do not have that ability. We're kind of stuck with our fixed revenue source of the state aid and the federal aids that we get, and then the fundraising that we do. Current teacher salary schedule will not allow the school to stay in business long-term. And we have done the analysis on that. The salary schedule outpaces expected revenues. Enrollment is the foundation of our charter school revenue. Just to give you an example, we get about $10,000 per student, 611 students, we would expect around 6.1 million in unrestricted revenues. You'll see our budget is higher than that, but that's that includes a lot of other aids we get that we can't spend on teacher salaries because it's restricted to other things like transportation, lease aid, special education, things like that. If we were to go down 571 students, we're gonna lose 40 students. That's a loss of $400,000 in revenue that could otherwise have been used for expenses. That's unrestricted. So next, yeah, the historical number of students over the past 5 years, this is that analysis showing it by cohorts and across the grade levels. And it's really been rather consistent and stable. And we saw this earlier, we're at 571 right now. And we're predicting 605 right now based on current, you can go to the next slide, that's fine. And you saw this earlier, and we're kind of predicting we're gonna be somewhere between 574, 581, 598. But if some of our current new recruitment strategies work, maybe we'll just retain all those people into next year and have 605. Or get more over the summer. So here is a revision. The revision is the name of the, TCGIS 2025 strategic plan. This is a graph that's been part of the strategic plan for 5 years, 4 years, maybe 4 years. And this just shows you the arrow where we're at right now. This is where we already start to see the teacher salary schedule in orange, the expenses of salaries and benefits, and the blue is the revenue or enrollments. And how the enrollments, even if it goes up, our expected revenues are not going to keep up with the expenses we will have for salaries and benefits. So teacher salaries as a percent of the budget with 2% revenue increase. So if you see in blue, that's the current payroll. In red, that is the school's proposed plan. And in yellow, you can see the plan for, or I'm sorry, the existing salary schedule. If we were just to put an increase on that. The key here is to see how the yellow line keeps going up. And this is even with 2% increases from the state every year.
And was that for constant enrollment?
Yes, that assumes constant enrollment. Yep, so that assumes consistent enrollment at 586. Because I think when we're trying to look at long-term budgeting, we don't want to assume we can fill the building with 640 students. It's just a lot of pressure. I mean, we've recruited a lot this year to keep our enrollment stable. And you can see over the last 5 years, it's been pretty stable. So I think I wouldn't start to budget for more until we start to see a trend in more, if that makes sense.
Plus, regardless of where that, how many students are in the building, the telltale sign, like you said, is the yellow line going up.
Right.
And no matter how many students are in the building, that if that yellow line is going up, at some point it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
If we had
eventually-
620 kids in the building, it might just be 2 years from now instead of right now.
Yeah, because eventually you fill the building and you either have to get another building or you, you just can't keep up with the schedule as it is.
But what you're showing with this graph on a positive note is that the proposal is allocating what, 15% more of our budget to teacher salaries.
Correct.
And so it'll go from 60% of our budget to almost 75% of our budget.
So we're still proposing an increase to have teacher salaries take a bigger increase or a bigger part of the pie. So we're still, that means, yeah, we're still making that commitment that teachers are that important. Yeah.
How is that possible?
Yep, it is, it is possible with some of the cuts that we've made this year. And, you're keeping those cuts going, keeping those revenues stable into the future. It's also possible with, an expected rate of increase of 2%. So right now, the available funds, the unrestricted funds that are available for the proposal is, or this is the existing, sorry, pie chart for how we're spending and the unrestricted funds. So again, doesn't include the restricted funds, it only includes the unrestricted funds. We currently spend 61% on the teacher salaries, 14% on administration and office. So this includes enrollment coordinator, front office, business manager, HR, facilities, technology, all those folks. And then the school expenses are your utilities, your maintenance repairs, the curriculum, professional development that doesn't come out of other donations, textbooks, pencils, paper, laptops. And so this is a pretty typical distribution for a school district. You might swing the 60%, you know, it would probably swing up a little bit in some districts, but admin office is about the same. Some admin can get down to 11%, but I think your office is pretty much as slim as it gets. So due to the flat revenues, we have to do, the only thing we can do is move the pie slices around. We can't really make the pie bigger. So right now, teacher and salary benefits, we're spending about 3.3 million. Office and admins at 780,000, and then other general education revenues at 1.367926. This is just the unrestricted funding. Again, doesn't count the restricted funding. Go ahead. This is just demonstrates that and I don't want to spend too much time on this. Let's just move ahead because people can look at that for themselves. There's some conversation today about the reserve fund, which we have $2 million in. That's our 31% fund balance. There are a lot of reasons why we cannot use our fund balance. It's a one-time, once we take it out of there, it's like your savings account, it's gone. And we cannot use it actually for teacher salaries and be able to maintain our debt service credit ratio. But you might hear us talk about using it for facilities, because if we use it on facilities, we're capitalizing our asset, and that we can use the money for as a one-time investment, and that will actually help our debt service credit ratio. Anyone who wants to know more about that, I will talk to you anytime. Just give me a call. Go ahead. Some of the questions that have come up is, well, did we look at anything else? And this is a list of a lot of things that we did this year to cut expenses. So you can take a look at that at any time. And it does equate to somewhere around $750,000 that we tried to reduce spending on this year, and we're successful. Unfortunately, one of them was delayed the purchase of the bleachers, which we're going to talk about later, and we're actually going to do it next year. So go ahead. Summary of the strategic plan goals, evaluating additional revenue ideas. We're exploring sponsorship partners, exploring approaches. We're already moving forward with someone who's going to rent our building. We've got a second tenant person interested, so we are trying to raise revenue in other ways. We're looking at other bank accounts to earn interest rates. There's all sorts of other things we're doing, but I don't think any of these revenue ideas are going to be enough to make up for some of the huge gap we're seeing between the current schedule and our budget or expected revenues. Go ahead. so you can keep moving on this. These are just the financial sustainability goals. You can go ahead. This is a distribution of our teachers. We have a nice distribution of teachers, but a lot of them are at the experienced end of things, which is wonderful for instructional quality, but a little harder when you're trying to budget, because they definitely are worth a lot of money. So that's a good thing for instructional quality and the quality of the school. Go ahead. Go ahead. So we are proposing a different schedule. We're proposing a new schedule. And our goal with this is to have teacher salary schedule that's in sync and aligned with expected revenues, stabilizes the unknown of whether the school will freeze salaries annually, because right now we're kind of struggling with trying to keep up. And as we do so, we freeze salaries to try to figure out how to budget for the schedule. So we're hoping that this will take that kind of boom and bust model out of the process. We are trying to benchmark teacher earning potential at 85% of nearby traditional districts. Right now, we're not at 85, we're lower than that. We're gonna try to ensure increases can continue to happen each year on the schedule for each teacher. We try to equally distribute the salary increases across the schedule, create a stable and sustainable salary schedule which teachers can rely on, and reward additional coaching and leadership duties with compensation increases. Okay. I think I just said this, so you can move forward. I'm trying to make sure we get to the meat of this. We also propose, besides the financing, we also propose some changes to additional paid time off, teacher training stipends for new teachers, maintenance of, our proposal assumes a maintenance of current FTEs. So the cost of our proposal is assuming current FTEs. Enrollment maintenance is something we are also assuming. And we're also assuming this year's salary freeze. And there's more school support for dependence benefits in our proposal. Yep.
And you're also assuming all the cuts that you showed on one of the slides
Correct.
earlier.
And that was to, yeah, balance the cost. Yep, go ahead. Blends the traditional elements of salary schedules like steps and lanes with a new addition of a career ladder pay bands. We think it values good teaching and teacher leadership. We think it supports sustainability and our special mission to keep German immersion education an available option for families. We know it allows for annual teacher salary increases within the expected school enrollment and revenues over the next 5 years. It also has a bridge schedule to ensure that every single teacher's salary will increase on the new schedule with each year. It has, it's based in research. This is research from the Federal Department of Education about the value of teacher leaders and coaches, mentoring teachers who model effective practices, coaches who are coaching struggling teachers or just coaching, new teachers, leading school level instructional improvement. Those teachers are an extreme asset. And so we like to see a schedule that is encouraging our teachers to continue in that part of their career. So it does have the components of experience, degrees and credentials, and leadership, while also cultivating salaries that are benchmarked to best in charter schools, increased pay for teacher leadership, and enrollment increases resulting in increased teacher pay. Okay. So this is the highs and lows we work with. Our current low or average entry is 37,145 with our average high at 67,170. Our proposal is to have the average entry of 40,375 with the average high of 73,798. With a median salary of 57,000. Okay. This is our benchmark to charter school salaries around the area. This would put us relatively competitive with many of the schools, but not all. We have the best student to licensed teacher average of these comparison schools. That orange means we have very few students to our teachers, licensed teachers in the building. Our ratio is really strong. Which does mean we have room if we wanted to make that orange bar higher and have more students with teachers at a time. We could reduce FTEs, teaching FTEs, and get money that way. And this chart shows us that. Okay. So our proposal is for an entry-level pay band of teachers in their first 4 years. A pay band for professionals who 5+ years who are teaching, honing their craft, engaging in continuous professional learning. And they might choose to do that for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, and that pay band is there. We have teachers who might take on, we have a lot of teachers who take on instructional coaching positions. And those teachers would be in the pink pay band. They're facilitating the intellectual and professional development of teachers with a focus on improving student achievement. And then we have leader teachers who are using data, guiding, instructing, and academic decisions, developing, conducting job-embedded professional development, leading teacher groups, who would be in the blue pay band. Okay. So this is the entry-level pay band. Starting at 40,000 with a BA, but if you were starting with a master's degree, you'd be starting at 44. And then ending at in this pay band at 42, or if you're in the master's degree, 46,000. This is the professional teacher pay band. And we have teaching experience 5 through 15 there, where you would start at 43,486. This is for one contact, is no good. Master's degree at 47,400. If you have a PhD, you start your 5th year at 51,000, and you could go up to let's see, we'll take the master's, 52,359. However, you're eligible for a 1% annual increase each year. And we know teachers at that on our schedule would be making under the professional teacher pay band as much as $67,000 or more. This is an example of some of the things our teacher coach pay bands do. Some of the current stipended coaching jobs that fit in this, but not an exhaustive list. Our intern mentor teachers, resource teachers, volunteer coordinators, curriculum coordinators, science standards coordinators. Okay. This is the coach pay band. You could start this at, you know, the 5th year, $45,000, $45,225, or get a master's, $49,296. And with 18 years, be up to 59,823. And again, we know that there's some people who would keep earning that one. They keep earning past that. That's in the more expanded version. Okay. The leader band is current teacher leader positions and stipends that are similar to elementary school coordinator, middle school coordinator, special ed coordinator, QComp coordinator, possibly an immersion coordinator. This is not an exhaustive list. And we could change this list from year to year, but depending on the needs of the school, meaning we can add to it if we need to. Go ahead. So, in this category, if you have a BA at 5 years, you can start around 46,000, and a master's degree be around 50,000. And by the time you're 20, be making 68,000 or 73,000 if you're the M+40 or PhD. And if you're 21 years, you'll just earn a little percent on top of that. So right now we have this scheduled, these these steps really guarantee salary increases of at least 1% a year for professional and 1.5 for the coach and 2% for the leader. And these are some examples of teachers currently on our pay scale, where their step and lane is, where their current salary is, what the estimated fiscal year salary would be, 25 salary would be, what the difference is, and what the percent increase is. And we have figured this out. Done estimates for everybody. We would have to though go back and do open positions for coaches and leaders, and therefore it's hard to give exact numbers until we know who's wants to sign up for which positions. But if we take guesses, we can figure out where everybody would be and know that nobody would lose money on this proposal. Nor would they, no one would stay flat nor lose money. So we would implement them by having eliminating instructional coaching and teaching stipends. We'd have these job classifications. We would have a few stipends that would remain. Go ahead. We do think it articulates increases across the salary schedule for all steps and lanes, simplifies the education lanes, creates a career ladder pay bands to cultivate teacher advancement and development, which is one of our strategic plan initiatives. The teacher leadership pay increases on the schedule, as opposed to our current flat stipends for leadership pay. It provides stability and sustainability. We've costed this out and we know it can keep pace with teachers will still see increases every year, but it'll keep pace with expected revenues. And the new schedule ensures the school's long-term viability. We also are proposing the special education assistants have their hourly wages increased to about 85% of the average of hourly wages for special education EAs in the area. Same for Kinder Club. Some of our other proposals include increasing personal days from 3 to 5 and lowering sick days from 8 to 7, because then you can use one of those to either be sick or go on vacation. And this allows more flexibility for you as teachers. Yeah, that's fine. And then we also are proposing that the longevity bonus proposals are bonus proposals with a payout in July 15th of the anniversary year. And each retention longevity payment will be a one-time payment on the date identified, July 15th. And the pay will not be added to the annual base. That annual base, the current way it's worded, definitely I can see teachers loving that. However, it costs us $100,000 in 4 years. And it's completely unsustainable. It gets to be $150,000 within about 7 years, and so on. Increased dependent premium contributions. We are proposing that we cover 25% of dependents. Right now we cover 0. Okay. Teacher salary benefits, our proposal, this is our investment over the next 5 years in the increases. So it's not flat. Other investments in the proposal, this is how much we are investing in the additions to the hourly EAs and Kinder Club. And then we would provide a stipend of $150 a day to probationary teachers for completing up to 10 additional days of training per year. This is pretty standard across districts. Some of the non-monetary benefits of teaching here. Unique mission, there's really very few places where you can teach in German in the area. Low class sizes, one of the lowest class sizes in the area. Support staff for adults and teachers is pretty good, is very good. Free before and after care, school care, family engagement is good, which is good for enrollment. One of the only schools I know of with the fall break, and very consistent, strong PD throughout the year. Go ahead.
I think that's the last one.
Okay, that's fine.
All right, thank you for that summary. We have 4 minutes left. And so I'm wondering about the rest of the principal's report.
So I just have the class sizes thing. Do you want to take the 4 minutes for questions on this? Or just, or do you want me to go right into that?
Well,
You've
how much
already
time,
talked-
how much time will you need for the,
I
presentation?
condensed it a lot.
okay. Should we extend this time 15 minutes to get through all that?
I can do it now. actually.
Okay.
Time sections.
All right, any questions, comments on the proposed teacher salary schedule and benefit changes,
Not change yet, just a proposal.
proposals?
So what's the status now that's being evaluated by the union and we're waiting to hear back or?
Yeah, we talk every week and present, you know, we have time to present back and forth. There's, yeah, we're still operating off of the existing schedule. They're proposing changes on that. We're still proposing the schedule, so that's where things are at the moment.
So something we did want board feedback on though is, I don't think you touched on this, that the idea is that this year the schedule stays the same. Teachers got the increases that were already built into the schedule. And it would stay the same because to meet our budget, that's what we have to do. And then our proposal also said that the new proposal schedule would kick in October 1st if our enrollment is at
Yeah,
600.
that slide disappeared somehow. Yeah, it should have been there.
And so that was one of the
That's right.
asks of the union was, are we open to not having that provision of the enrollment hitting 600 in order to go into the new proposal?
Yeah, I was gonna ask about that because I think
That's
that's a
fair.
big caveat
Yep.
where we looked at the enrollment data before and you're like, you think it's going to be around 580? That's 20 off of 600. So how realistic is this even going into effect? Like, it seems like a fantasy almost.
Yeah, it's fair. So one of the slides I somehow dropped, it was accidental to, as I said, an updated enrollment to Emily. There is a part of the proposal that expects us, that puts us in to effect if we reach 600 students. Otherwise, we stay at the current salary schedule. With the steps and lanes for teachers in it. So we did propose that. Now the union has asked us if we would consider taking that out of our proposal. So we are definitely in conversation about that piece of the proposal.
Mhm. So is the proposal affordable at 585?
The answer is. I think so, but I want to double confirm that. That's what we were getting ready to do for our next meeting next Monday.
Mhm.
Currently, so you saw the investment we had up there, 223. We also, I didn't put the slide up there, but there is a part, the union's proposal right now is around 3.5 million. Or I'm sorry, 350,000, thinking in too many zeros. And so we're at around 220 with all the items here, so. I think the big thing for the proposal coming from us is to try to keep it. Is to propose a new schedule because we know the existing schedule just continues to put us in this boom and bust mode until. Well, forever. And so we'll be back in this situation in 2 years if we don't figure out a new schedule that reduces the rate of increase, but still provides increases. And so I think that's why we're, having a conversation about, can we afford this without the 600 student enrollments, caveat? And, that's probably why the union asked us about that. Cause I think everybody's negotiating in good faith.
Okay, so it sounds like we need to crunch the numbers before we can address that further.
Yeah, the salary schedule costs us about 150,000 next year, so I'm fairly confident we can make it work.
All right, any other comments or questions?
Less confident.
All right,
I'm less confident that we can make it
That's
work.
fair, but we still have the 600 enrollments.
Yeah.
In our.
Well, we
proposal
just gotta
because we
figure out
don't-
how it
Yeah.
could work.
Yeah,
5% interest.
yeah,
5% interest.
it's true. I know which bank.
50,000 more.
That gets us a little of the way there.
Well, that's a great segue to my presentation.
Oh, that's another way to get it to work, yep.
Emily, did you get the new one that I sent today? Because I condensed and I took some recommendations from the executive committee discussion that we had just to change some things, and also from the TCJS enrollment projection report that came out of the board retreat. So Director Klinzing showed the pie, and that the pie is there and you can make those things, you can make them in different sizes, but there isn't necessarily any more revenue. So staffing taking up so much of the pie, if we make that portion of the pie smaller by needing less staffing, that is one way to move money around. So I was tasked with checking to see what the classroom capacities were at TCJS, and then also to nail down some classroom sizes recommendations. It's our job to stay out of operating debt, and layoffs in October are never great. So taking a look at enrollment numbers in spring is just financially responsible. And then there's also an opportunity to look at right sizing our classrooms. You saw the graph where the teacher to student ratio is really low at TCJS. Some of that is also because we have a lot of staff that are not classroom teachers. And so our ADSYS staff, although grant funded, is still holds 50% of those positions from our general fund. Positions like the social worker that is needed, we have certain financial or federal obligations to those, are also not necessarily a classroom teacher. So as far as classroom capacity, check, we are good. I looked at some metro sizes and we are definitely under or on par in our lower elementary, but under our average for middle or junior secondary, which is 6, 7, 8. Looked at the historical enrollment data that tells me that if we upped our class sizes, the historical averages from grades 5 through 8 could consistently fit into 2 sections with some cohort exceptions. And currently we are at about 11-to-1 or 12-to-1, which is the lowest among 16 of our chartered peers. Those are the things I took into consideration when coming up with the recommendations. Next slide. This is just some data that you can look at. This is where I got some of those numbers from the first slide. I left it in just so that the community could see. Next slide. Same business there. The TCGIS averages are, actually, go back one slide, Director Albers. The over to the right are our current averages, if you're looking at these slides later. Next slide. This is that same data about class size or student to teacher ratio. And then in the next slide, I was particularly looking at 5, 6, and 7, 8. So you can see around there, there are a few exceptions where 75 is very clearly 3 sections, but 56, it's a really tricky number because 56 divided by 3 is a really small class. Lovely for language learning, but also, you know, not financially the most lucrative, but it's still 2 larger sections. So it's a difficult number, and we consistently fall sort of in that do we or don't we number. Is it 2 or is it 3? Same with 7 and 8, you'll see on the next slide. The yellow portion you'll see is when there were only 2 sections, and so the beige color, the puce color, is when we started as 3 sections. And so you can see that we are at about 85% retention. So then in the next slide, Julie plotted that data, Director Alcatute plotted that data, and you can see that we're really consistent. This is typical attrition. This is typical attrition for language. This is typical attrition for charter. This is typical across the board. What you see in the yellow is 80 was the number that was come up with as if we start with this number, how do we get to a good number of sections at the end in 8th grade? We do not currently have 4 sections of kindergarten, but what was proposed by the recruitment teams, the enrollment teams, Director Klinzing and Director Alcatute was if we went to 4 cohorts of 20, we could maintain that smaller class size in kindergarten, which we've seen really flourish this year. And also with that standard attrition, get to a good spot at the end in 6 or 7 or 8.
Best part about this is it's all mathematically based on facts of the average attrition rates over the last 8 years. So if we were to.
It's 5 years.
5 years. So if we were to have those same averages, if we were to have that average happen, that average attrition rate, then this 80 should work out. It's pretty predictable.
Well, what's really nice is this is predicting out what the total enrollment at the whole school would be in 10 years when a kindergarten class of 80 makes it all the way through our program, and we've continued to have kindergarten classes of 80. So in 10 years, we could be at 669, which is a really great.
It's a great number. And it's the highest number I think we can have in the building. And then 80 is actually, we're only 6 off from that right now in our enrollment next year.
We're getting there. So the next slide, you'll see a couple of different numbers. So if we reach that 80, we would intend to do the 20 for 40. We offered all of the applications, all 96 of that. 96 applications. Yeah. We offered them all a spot. And so that would dictate sort of how when we would start that. And then we're recommending the 27 for sort of the 1st through 6th grade. Some of the research I did showed that increasing class sizes with increased grade levels, just what schools do, it's developmentally appropriate, it's financially responsible. And what we see is really the need for the admin team to just have flexibility in making those decisions. Our policies, we found a whole bunch of historical references to class sizes, and it's been a debate in the community. And we all know that class size is an important part of language learning, but what we don't have is a lot of clear guidance. Cohorts aren't necessarily created equally. There are some cohorts that are higher need, some cohorts that have maybe more kids on special education plans, more students who joined later and have higher need for DOP support or things like that. We just want to be able to be flexible in allocating our FTE in the best way possible. One way we did that was going from 4 elective choices for 7th and 8th grade, 5 to 4. And we saw that we can do that. Those are project-based classes. Our gym we have 2 Phi-Ed teachers. Our gym is large enough. And so we would like to see that 7 and 8 class mixed electives. I wonder if that should be 32 as well. One of those should be different. I think that the 7 and 8 should be 32.
Yeah, it
Sorry.
should say
Yeah,
32.
It should
not
say
33.
32.
And that's up to 32, not.
Correct.
all
And this is just
32.
recommended maximums. And we also would like to go the other way too, because we have a couple classes that are just not, again, financially sustainable seems to be a buzzword in my presentation. That we're not able to offer classes where there are 7 or 8. We'd like to have 16 sort of be the marker that we'd like to hit.
So we're actually recommending a range of minimum and maximum, not so much that max would always be the number. There's some electives that's possible, but it probably wouldn't be chosen as a core class number.
It's a UD or ID number that we'd really be looking at. The implications for our responsibility to German immersion are with that flexibility, we would be able to do what we're doing this year with 8th grade is our core classes are at a larger, they're 2 sections, and our German classes are at 3 sections. And so we would love to be able to continue putting our FTE support into smaller language classes. If we are going with a larger class size overall, that frees up money to maintain programs like German as a foreign language, which we do not receive federal funding for. We have no obligation other than a moral one to offer that support in classes like ID or UD. We would be able to keep smaller classes like a 16, for example. We haven't changed any programming with any of these recommendations. We're not necessarily getting rid of anything. We still plan on offering DOF, but we do want to be able to have flexibility to make good choices. We could see a potential decrease. The pot I talked about at the beginning would start to get smaller because we would need less people. So it could be a potential increase at the very high end of all the things of about 5.6. With an average FTE costing 85,000, that's a potential savings of 46,000. With these 476,000. Slow it down, Elizabeth. With these guidelines and right sizing, we could have saved about 1.6 FTE this year. And we have the potential also to use our 0.8s maybe differently in elementary school. All of our 3rd and 4th grade teachers are 0.8. And we use them for things like small group interventions, but we would also be able to use them in a different way and hire some hourly supervision employees to save additional monies instead of having to have a full-time teacher who's at a higher step, do supervision. We would lock that person into teaching a course and then have an hourly supervision employee save us a few dollars. Those are some recaps. The higher the grade, the higher the number of students is typical. This plan sees our classes getting larger with grade level. It's pretty developmentally appropriate. We want to just be nimble and flexible, and different cohorts have different needs. And we just would like the flexibility to set higher classes in the middle school so that we could allocate our FTE in different areas. This is also really riding on the sections of kindergarten too. That will impact our 1st grade for the following year.
Can you remind me what UD or ID is?
Yeah, intensive Deutsch.
Oh, yeah.
So our students choose between that or Spanish. And we don't have numbers for those classes right now because those numbers are dependent on the IVA2 tests that our 6th graders take. And so we're making decisions and choices on data we don't really have yet. We also do not require currently students to take that course. It is a family decision.
Although we do have numbers on how many are in the course this year, right?
We do, and that's where that 16 number came.
Is that accelerated German or is that catch-up German?
Well, accelerated and catch up are the same terms, but not accelerated probably in the way you're using it.
Yeah, okay.
Advanced, you mean?
Advanced, yeah, sorry.
It's accelerated intending to catch kids up.
Okay,
Would it be helpful to have some variables that are tracked to be used as feedback? So for example, if there was some association between the change in FTEs
Mhm.
and quote unquote MPA score.
Mm.
Then you could, oh, okay, this is affecting this negatively, positively.
Yeah, it would be.
So,
You're saying if larger class sizes would affect our achievement on MCA scores, things like that,
yeah.
Yeah.
Or if they help them,
right?
you know, just so that, you know, I think some of the stuff is, you know, hypothesis.
It is a little, isn't it?
So, you know, to guard against.
Right. I agree.
All right, we are past time. Any other brief questions or comments?
I think mine is brief. What grades are currently looping or typically loop? Is it first, second, third, fourth?
First, second, third, fourth.
I'm just curious if you considered leaving first and second grade at a lower number like 24.
That was my original proposal. It kind of went back and forth. And it's based on the 85, it's based on the number of kindergarten, the loss between a traditional kindergarten and first grade year, and allowing for holding on to a few more of those kiddos. And so keeping it at 27 to get to that later number in seventh and eighth grade. Right?
Mhm.
I'll let Julie do the math.
So we played with different numbers for starting in kindergarten, and that's linked in the committee of the whole report. So you can see different options.
This is the Cliff Notes version.
Elizabeth, this was a good presentation, just thinking through like the risks and opportunities. If our attrition doesn't go the way we think,
Yeah,
will we hit the max of the building at some point, or would that be like, what does that risk look like if that materialized?
what does that risk look like? We would probably see that storm coming. And it would look like, oh, we're not seeing that at that 85% attrition. We need to adjust. And I think you could always go back down to the 3 kindergartens. Keeping in mind that the 80 and the 4 kindergartens is designed to kick that revenue up, right? So if we saw it stable out, then
So make the adjustments on the load rates. Okay,
it's a lot about being nimble and flexible.
that's good.
Or you can put, you know, third story on,
Yeah, 4.
fourth story, second.
That's where the hot takes is.
Yeah.
Mhm. All right, any other questions or comments? All right. It is 8:27 and we'll take a 15-minute recess. You're so excited to see us.
Because you could do.
Emily,
you're
you're-
a teacher, so-
I do believe it. It's so.
But I did good job out and had about.
Blank, so we can look
Oh,
at
no.
pictures.
Like,
And chart.
What the hell?
I have that. Is that next?
oh, that's what you
Can we
want.
do?
Okay, guys. It is 8:46 and I'm calling this meeting of the Twin Cities German Immersion School Board back to order. I'd like to make an adjustment to our agenda, just the committee of the whole. Action to be the next agenda item, and that would be discussing our campus improvement plan. Is there a second to my motion to amend the agenda? Thank you, Director Hartman. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. All right, let's discuss our capital, our campus improvement plan.
Chris.
Yes, we would love to start with bleachers. So is Chris here? Okay, fantastic. Eric Habish, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good evening, y'all. Thanks for all of this. I would like to bring up a proposal for bleachers for the gym. They were originally in the proposal when the building was being redone. But you know, finances and such came in such a way that that was not possible at that time. Currently with TCGIS Athletics, we have put together enough funds that we are able to purchase bleachers for the gym at this point. And largely this is also due to the fact that we have volleyball and basketball games, which we were not able to host in the aula that we had beforehand. Now we're able to host them, and we regularly get enough folks in there, students, grandparents, parents, neighbors, everybody, that we fill up every chair that we have in there. And there's a unofficial student section that I have the kids just sit on the ground. So it would be very nice, particularly for parents and grandparents, to be able to have guaranteed seating. And looking at some of the bleachers at other charter schools that we've competed against, they have anything from 1 to 3, maybe even 4 rows. Some of the larger charter schools like Nova Classical Academy that has a high school, they have then like 10 rows of bleachers. That's not something that I think is necessary for us. I think we could easily fill 2 rows at any given basketball or volleyball game. I think in the future, we could also fill 3 and maybe have a few in the 4th row. So my thought is, and what our budget I think could afford, is probably somewhere around 4 rows. And all of that fortunately can be done manually. Starting at 5 and plus rows, you'd have to get an like a mechanical thing to have it come out and put it back in, which would need maintenance and would also potentially cost more money. So for that, for the financial stuff, that goes over to building manager Andy Nessett.
Okay, thanks.
Director of facilities.
Director of facilities. Well, whatever you want to call it. Head custodian.
Hey, Hausmeister.
Hausmeister.
Chris, thanks for everything you've done.
I'll let you go.
The revenue raiser right there.
Yeah, good. So I just put together a kind of a small chart and a small comparison of the different costs of the bleachers. And I was tasked to put together a 4-row and a 3-row set to compare the costs. So the first part of the name, like the Safety LLC, is the company that's actually selling it and installing it to us. And the second part after the dash is like the Intercol is the company that manufactures the bleachers. So all 3 of these companies are relatively large companies that have been in business for many, many years. And they'd have no problems putting bleachers in because we have a relatively small system. quality wise, they're all about the same. They have 10-year warranty on the undercarriage, and on the metal parts. It's a 16 gauge powder coated steel. That's constructed underneath to hold the bleachers up, and there's usually a 5-year warranty on the deck and the seats. So they're kind of similar in that, and quality wise, they're similar. There's just differences in cost. You can see when we go down, but like the vinyl end curtains would be kind of interesting to have too, because they keep debris and balls out of underneath the bleachers, because otherwise they're open on the sides. That's why I added those in there. So you want to go down a little bit to the next. Here, a little more, yeah, there. So that's the cost for the 3 rows. So Chris indicated he'd probably rather have 4 rows at this point than 3.
3 minimum.
3 minimum, 4.
4, I think, could be
Okay.
maximum.
I suggested 4 because I think for non-sporting events like concerts and graduations and things like that, for the amount that it would cost us to put 4 in, I think might as well do it now. And it's gonna accommodate the non-sporting events like those other things.
So the way it's divvied up is it's about 37 feet on the north side of the gym. And 40 feet on the southern part of it. That's the southeast wall, basically. It's where the single door is in the middle. So on one side you have 37 feet and on the other side you have 40 feet. And then I put a little link in there for the manufacturers. I don't know if you want to click on one of those, the top one. They're all, you know. They do stadiums and all kinds of stuff. So we're, you know, each one of those could easily put our system in and it'd be a good quality system. And if you want to go back.
So those green things, that's what we were looking at.
I was gonna ask for an example, what are we to? What would it
You have
look
some
like?
other pictures here. don't
Yeah,
you?
there's better examples down below. So I went to different schools in the area that they gave me where they put the systems in. So this is the Athlos Leadership Academy up in Brooklyn Park. And they have a bigger system than we would have, and it's motorized, but you can kind of see how it's set up.
So this is the 5, it looks like.
Yeah, that's
6,
6,
yeah.
yeah.
If you go to 5, you have to motorize it.
Yeah, and that's what it looks like when it's closed. They're all the same distance from the wall when they're closed, no matter how many, you know, seats you have, because they all just kind of stack on top of each other. And that's more like what we would get, a smaller system like that. That one was also motorized.
That's 4.
Yeah,
That's what the 4 rows would look
Yeah.
like.
and that was, what school was that?
Nativity.
Nativity, yeah. And so you can see there, and that's a good example of like, so if you have a vinyl curtain, it's like a ripstop vinyl, kind of what the, you know, the pads on the wall are made out of. So it stops, because they did have Coke cans and stuff underneath there that are not, you know, so it would help us keep it clean under there.
Would it stop children?
It does stop children. To some point, yeah. So then that's the Urban Academy. Theirs was actually manual, but I wasn't able to open it, so that was kind of disappointing. They didn't have time for me to sit there and try to open and operate it. And that one came from HB, but I was not able to actually go there because I never got a contact to look at anything. They just sent me that photograph.
That looks like 5 rows, doesn't it?
Yeah. So I was never able to personally look at their bleachers and their quality, but they're all about the same, you know. And then if you go down a little bit more, it kind of shows you there. It kind of shows you the, you know, when it's out and when it's in. And the distances, and that's a 3-row system. So you only have really one bench that moves. That's the bottom one. On a 4-row, you'd have 2. And unfortunately, if you look on the right, the distance when they're closed is just far enough to be over the first, that light blue border for the basketball. And so that's kind of what we have to live with if we install bleachers until we redo the coating on the floor and maybe paint some new lines further out.
But that's
I
for,
did
that's
ask
for
both of our,
basketball.
Gym teachers over there, and they seem to be okay with, having that.
Yeah, it's basketball the short way.
It's basketball the short way,
Yeah,
not the long.
Yeah, it only affects basketball the short way. It doesn't affect like the real game.
Right.
So.
Which would not affect games against other schools, it would affect gym class.
Yeah,
Just so that everyone.
And that's when it's closed or that's when it's open?
it's when it's closed. So you can't make it smaller than when it's closed.
And then it with the 4-seat version, when it's open, it doesn't interfere with the regular size.
No,
Courts
no, none of them.
or
You could even put
anything.
5 in and it wouldn't
Okay.
interfere, but. At that point, you'd have to go motorized though, if you're gonna put a 5 system in, it's too hard to pull.
Quick question for you. The pictures you showed a lot of them like a flat wall.
Mhm.
And the way here, the one on the right is closed, right?
Yep.
We can't get something that's the flat wall like those pictures, or not a wall, but a flat kind of smooth surface.
There's no way you can do it because.
No, the top row is always open.
The top row, okay.
Cause if you look at.
Oh,
when it's
okay,
closed,
gotcha.
You always have the
Okay.
top one
Yeah,
exposed.
it's kind of.
That's why like they put a little band over there with a sign says,
Yeah.
don't climb on the bleachers, stay off the bleachers. That's what the kids will do.
That looks fine, doesn't it? Gym class, they'll be climbing.
Yeah, yeah.
We're gonna put Tabby on top of it.
So then if you go down a little bit more, then it's just like an overview of like a set, just from the top down. Kind of, they'd have a walkway in the middle. That's all kind of designed by the company that manufactures them. And we, because there's more than 100 seats, we have to have at least 5 handicap spaces built in. And I think if you go back up to one of the other, pictures. The smaller one.
Yeah.
One more, right there. If you look on the bottom left, you see that space in there? That's called a recoverable handicap seat.
Nice cursor.
So you can have it out as a seat, or you can push it in if you need room for wheelchair. Yeah, so that's about it. That's all I have.
Very good. There are
That-
2 disadvantages to the 5. One, they cost $10,000 more, correct? Because they have to be mechanical. And 2, mechanical things break and require repair.
Yeah, and that's
Or
not.
motorized, sorry,
Yeah,
motorized.
that's not taken into account. I think it was $9,000 to do the motorized bleachers, but then you also have to run the electricity to it. So you're gonna have the electrical costs in there too, electrician.
Can you go back to a picture of like the 3 or the 4? No, the pictures of the actual bleachers.
That one looks like it's 4.
That's a 4.
That's a 4, yeah. Theirs are a little. They're not as wide because they had 3 entry doors they had to go around. So each section of bleachers is a little shorter than we would get.
That was the shitty
That was
one.
it.
Oh, that was it.
Emily, scroll up a little bit, please.
Hmm?
Scroll back up a little bit. So I'm just worried about that, now back up, like that picture, like those things sticking out, like are kids gonna like bang themselves on that? Is there any way to like cover that up or make it all integrated? Or-
That's kind of how they are. I mean,
But that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if I guess if you do 3, do you have to have any sort of handrails or something?
you have to have one in the middle to walk up there.
Even for 3 steps?
Those come out too, like based on experience.
You can pull them out of
You
there?
can pull them out.
Yeah,
Is my
I
understanding.
guess that's what I'm asking.
At least at the level that I've seen them at, you can pull them out and put them inside the bleachers as you close them. I don't know if that's exactly how these all work, but that's
I
my
have to
experience.
check on that one. I don't know.
I've
If you
seen
can pull them
that.
out or not. I mean, worst case scenario, maybe we can find like some sort of pad cover to put over them. If people are really worried about it, or, there's an issue with it. I mean, most schools that I've seen now, they just leave them like that. Are you worried about just the handles or the seats or?
The handles
The
more
handles,
than
yeah.
anything. And I'm also thinking like. I think the biggest reason I would suggest going to 4 is so it's taller, because if it's at knee level. And just somebody runs into it, you're gonna wreck your knee. The taller it is, the more your body's going into it. If you get pushed into it or run into it or something, the less likely to get hurt.
When it's open.
When it's
When
shut.
it's shut, but when it's shut,
That's what the
it'll
cycle
be a
thing-
rectangle. It'll.
Yeah, but if it's a rectangle that's 4 feet off the ground and I run my knee into it, you might hurt your knee. But if you run your hip into it, you're probably fine.
Mm.
All right, I'd like to make a motion to approve the purchase of a bleacher system for Rose High.
Okay.
Is that what you would like, Andy?
With final crews,
Whatever you guys need. I don't care if you buy 3 or 4 or 5.
with or without
Fine with
curtains.
4.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to purchase the 4-level system. Is there a second?
Second.
There,
Director Smaka, thank you. Okay, discussion.
Are we deciding also on the vendor or?
We are just deciding to purchase it and we will let them deal with the details.
Okay.
With or without the curtainy thing. I would say
With the
with.
curtain
I would say
thing.
with the curtain thing.
as long as they're orange.
No. They're on brand. Yeah, everybody gets blue. I was gonna say blue.
So consensus on color.
So I,
Brand color. Not. Mhm.
For the gym,
Dangerous.
for the seats, is that basketball line being run? Is that a big issue or is that manageable? It's not.
I mean, we talked about it, looked at it, I think it's manageable.
Yeah.
So perfect, but
Right.
manageable and.
The benefits outweigh.
Yeah, the benefits. Great.
The only suggestion I would have with the seat colors is nothing too light, because otherwise they'll get dirty.
Can you have more than one color?
Hmm?
Can you have more than one color?
Yeah, I believe you can pick from 2 colors, but you gotta have one row, one color, and then the next row can be a different color.
Okay. Well, we'll take the color discussion offline.
Okay.
Are we setting a budget cap?
Let's see. We could certainly do that. Budget cap of
I would, gonna
40,000.
amend the motion to say 40,000 for bleachers. After that, it's, up to the staff that's gonna use it. I think that's fair. Right?
What do you mean it's up to the staff that's gonna use it?
Like, we don't have to sit here and talk about color and everything.
Oh, yeah,
No,
yeah.
Like, it just,
All right, I'll amend the motion.
Rentability of the space.
Will it improve the rentability?
Yeah.
I think so,
Yeah.
yeah.
We'll add something.
I would say that we rent chairs every year for graduation. And we would, to a tune of $500 or $400,
I thought it was 800.
$800, and so we could rent less chairs.
Yeah, almost $2.
in 100 years, we'll be ahead.
All right, I'd like to amend my motion to approve the purchase of the bleachers up to $40,000 cost. Is there a second on that amendment?
Second.
Thank you, Director Albers. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries and we will purchase bleachers.
The back row?
That means he gets to pick the color.
The first of each.
Yeah.
We should have put this in, like,
Mm,
anybody but Chris can pick the color.
Okay,
Low in the making.
it was.
Good work, Chris. Thanks for all you do and for putting it together.
That's, I mean, Andy honestly did a lot of work.
And when you walk through
That's great.
that door. Basically.
Okay, I have another ask for funding for our playground project. I would like to ask the board's approval to fund fund the project at 645,000. Gosh, what am I saying? 243,000. I don't know what I'm talking about. 243.
talking about KC.
The outdoor AC.
Yeah.
That includes your electric bill. Great.
So the total would be 260, but 15,000 is already allocated from the PTO, so that is not money we need to worry about approving. So 245. And we have money available in our Fund 4, which is the revenues from our Kinder Club. We don't want to use all of that money, because we'd like to leave some for Kinder Club to have a buffer. But we have our fund balance that we could tap into and use it to make a capital purchase, in addition to Fund 4. And then we also have the money in the ABC, which owes us 200,000 anyway. So I'd like to make a motion to approve the purchase of a playground design at $245,000. Is there a second?
I mean, what are we?
We can discuss after there's a
Yep,
second.
that's why I stopped. Second.
Thank you, Director Yamani. Yeah, Manny. Oh my God, it's getting late. Okay. Discussion.
So both projects, the bleachers and the playground will not affect the expenses, will not affect the ratios, anything, right?
Right.
Because they're all capital projects.
Correct.
Their capital.
We have checked and they're both
Just
considered capital improvements, which would capitalize some of our fund balance, which is a good thing.
What's that number based on?
It's based on talking to several playground vendors and looking at similar sized playgrounds that could fit. It's also looking at the cost of removing the deteriorated poured in place surface. So that needs to be taken out, and then replacement surfaces. It's based on quotes. So it's just a ballpark, but it gives us something to work within, instead of an unknown.
Is that all the surfaces
helpful.
from Como to Van Slyke, or is that just underneath the, like, just?
We are
the-
trying to create an overall playground plan, which might impact all of the surfaces, but what I'm talking about that we priced out so far is the removal of the poured in place.
Is that like under the dome and
Yeah, it's the blue
under
stuff,
the rubber tables and stuff, that stuff?
under the ping pong, under the dome, and under the other more traditional play structure that's around the corner. If you haven't been out there lately, just
It's in rough.
go for a walk on the moon and fall in some crevices. It is a safety issue. And our playground right now is not competitive with, for example, Yinghua Academy or Nova. If you go and look at their playgrounds, they are beautiful. And we're trying to attract kindergartners to our school. That's it will be a big draw to have better outdoor play space.
So
And as we know, we had just 2/3 of our kindergarten full this past year, so. Go ahead.
So the budget would include start to finish. It includes the equipment, the installation, the removal of the
Mhm.
stuff, the replacement of the, I want to call it flooring, but whatever the source.
We're gonna try to make it work for that. I'm not guaranteeing I won't come back to ask for more, but that's what we'd like to do in this stage this summer. We're also looking at really bright paint that is special formulated to adhere to the asphalt, and it has some sand in it to give it grip and they have multiple paint colors and can make our surface look really beautiful. That's one other option we're looking at for our sport court and improving that. We're also looking at artificial turf. There's a more bio-friendly version that is now available that we're investigating. And we're looking to see if we could convert some of it to more of a soccer field with that artificial turf. We have a parent volunteer who's an architect, and he's been working on some plans, viewing it from above and kind of reimagining how we could use the space. So that's still a work in progress. But to move forward, and to spend more time on this project, I just need to know that we have money that we are willing to spend on it. Because otherwise it's not something I want to work on.
Is that, so 15 from PTO?
15,000, yep.
Yep, 100 from Fund 4. Are we spending the capital campaign money?
That's my proposal, is using the 45,000 in the capital campaign.
So now we're at 160 without taking anything from the fund balance. And your proposals for 260?
Mhm.
So that's 100.
245.
No, that's.
Well, 260 with the 15 that is counting.
Or, so we're at 160. So then you're saying take 85 out of the fund balance to make it 245.
And the building.
That's,
Different.
it's coming out of the fund balance. We can pretend it's coming out of wherever, but that's where it's coming out of at the end of the day.
It all ends up the same,
Yep.
not like.
So I do want to clarify though, the Fund 4, I think we still need to talk with Kinder Club to make sure that they're okay with us using 100,000, but it might be less. And so then more would come out of the fund balance.
You said that there might be
I
more
think she's-
later on, coming, you know, or.
I'm just not guaranteeing I won't ask for more.
The thing is, like, there has to be a cap, otherwise one doesn't end. You go to 300,
Yeah,
400,
the-
500, you know, there has to be.
Well,
some
right
kind
now
of-
you can't go over 541. That's all that's left.
No, I know, but that's,
Yeah, that's the number you need.
Yeah, I'm asking for 245.
Is the 245 to go do it, or is it to go get quotes? Do we have all the quotes? And is there kind of like the bleachers, they're different, like, was that work all been done already?
So we still need to design it.
Okay.
But we need to be able to tell the designer how much we can afford.
Okay.
We're kind of going in circles right now because
We don't have a budget.
we're not committed to
I would
spending the money.
be much more comfortable saying that the budget is 245 and not, we're gonna go see what we can get for 245 and we might need 40 more or 50 more or 20 more, right? That we're approving a budget to
Yep.
do the playground improvements, because there will be choices, right? And
Mhm.
I think,
So to clarify, that's what I am asking for,
Okay.
is to do it this summer, 245.
but for a complete playground, not like we did this part, but we still need.
We
the
will see
slide
what
and
we
the
can
swing set
afford
and the
for
whatever.
245.
Yeah, okay.
Mhm.
But that does get us replacement of all the current like issue surface. It keeps the dome and the rest of the play structure will be replaced with the play structure.
We'll see. We're not committed to tearing out the old traditional structure yet. Because in our priorities from stakeholder surveys, it was ranked higher to add more features than to replace that traditional structure. Keeping the rope dome is the plan. Because that was the lowest priority of replacing it.
But to fix it up, right?
Yeah. And so all these different surfaces that we have as options cost, there's different price points that are quite variable, so it'll be nice to have a number to work within to determine if we do all poured in place, which is very expensive, or if we do engineered wood fiber, which is like fancy wood chips. Playground grade wood chips.
If we were to approve the 245 today, then you guys go get the different designs. Would there be a loop back to the board to say, here's the three options we got, which one do you want to do?
Mhm.
Right, is that okay, similar to what we just.
Yeah,
did with
and to the
bleachers?
whole community.
Yeah.
We want to involve everybody in finalizing the design.
I support it. I would, like Abner said, have there be a loop back, but I support giving you the go ahead to move forward with spending about $250,000 on a playground.
All right.
Quite frankly, I don't like the uncertainty about like coming back and ask for more, so I think there should be a cap on it. What can you spend there? That's,
I think that'll be part of like, I guess that's what I'm hoping. That's
Yeah.
part of the like coming back to us and being like, this is what we could get for this much money. This is what we could get for this much money, and we'll make a final decision then. Is that kind of what you're envisioning?
why you hope you have to have a vote now?
I think it because the way I'm hearing it is without commitment that we're gonna spend something, it's a lot of wasted work to go do all of this and get the quotes and. Like, if at the end of the day, we're not gonna do anything. That's my interpretation of it. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, I just need to make sure that the budget that I've been telling our vendors that we're working around is affordable and supported by the board. Because if we can only do 100,000, the vendors walk away. And I'm just trying to pull up my project plan here that I can share.
Is there a risk that this would interfere with any of the other funding priorities like air conditioning and windows and stuff?
It
Are we making
probably
choices?
would leave us enough possibly to do the HVAC, but probably no, not windows or insulation.
Next year.
We'd have to see the realization of, we gotta keep enough in there for the fund balance to stay where the authorizer wants it, so. We'd have to,
Our fund balance is currently at 30%.
right, so we have.
Do you
about-
have idea on how much that costs? The HVAC and windows?
Approximately 250,000 is what I saw in each of those, right?
Well, for the windows.
For the windows, what was the HVAC?
It depends on the
average?
system. On how much control you want over each room,
What was the range?
anywhere from 550,000 to 800,000, somewhere in there.
We probably couldn't do that then.
And
Could we prioritize based on, dividends? If, for example, the playground gets us more students, then, maybe necessary change in the building, but, we could prioritize.
I'm sharing on my screen. And you probably can't see it, but trying to make it bigger. Let's see. This is our overall project plan. What our actions are. And you can see the first one is determine cash budget. And then later determine aspirational budget. So since we've been working on this, we've been viewing this as a phased project. And the first phase would be this summer. And that's what I'm asking for $245,000 for. The money that I alluded to would be perhaps an aspirational budget if we had an overall plan that we couldn't afford in our 245,000, then we could budget it in the future. This is, we've tasked our campus planning group to create a long-term plan. I'd love to see it on paper before Karen leaves, so that we have that documented. This campus planning committee has been working for 3 years, so I think we all have had many discussions about our priorities. We have a communication plan where we're including District 10 Community Council, sharing timely updates with our stakeholders. We have Liz Kessner from the Communication and Outreach is also on the Playground Committee, and she's leading that. We have gather stakeholder feedback. And we've done that with our stakeholders. I've met with the student council and discussed their ideas as well. Let's see, I did want to share all of that at the last committee of the whole, but we ran out of time. But we do plan to share that out with the community, what the priorities were from our survey. Next, creative playground plan. We wrote a request for proposals for playground design services. We sent that out. We have 3 proposals that are back. But they're just based on example playgrounds, not specific to our design right here. We're currently meeting with the vendors. We have another meeting next week to get ideas on what we could accomplish in our space. Ultimately, we want to select a design partner, develop the playground plan based on feedback, finalize the playground design, receive the final quote, confirm affordability, establish timeline. Board approval of the design and budget is here as an action. I have May 30th as a goal for that. Because we will need to order the components and have them manufactured, and I think there's some lead time in that. Another work stream that we have is exploring grant opportunities. So we have a team of 4 people. 4 people working on grant opportunities. They've gone through hundreds of grant ideas that were provided to us in a summary, and we found 10 that we think we could apply for. So they are currently working on those grant applications, and they plan to submit them this weekend. Ultimately, Andy will be managing the contract when the playground is going in and the grand opening. We've talked to Flagship Recreation, Minnesota, Wisconsin Playground, Ultimate Playgrounds, St. Croix Rec, and another one we added is Midwest Playscapes. So hopefully this is helpful. We have tracking what's complete, what's in progress, dates. Any other discussion on the motion on the table?
So it sounds expensive to me, but your experience with the bids and what we're looking to do is that's the right ballpark.
Yeah, it's expensive to tear out all of the stuff that we have and dispose of it.
How much of the, like, what percentage of the project budget do you think it is?
And do they have to tear it out and start over?
I think we still have to wait a little bit longer and get a few more proposals to kind of see where we're at with just the tearing out part of it. You know, at the very least, you gotta tear it out. There's also some water lines, some, drainage lines from the buildings that run on the ground that have to be kind of worked on. And then depending on what you put back, there's different costs for that. But I guess once we can kind of finalize some numbers, we'll know more, what percentage of that will go towards doing that.
That's why I think we should approve a budget at the end of the process, not now.
Well, a lot of these companies ask you what
First
is your budget,
question.
how much money do you have? And if you can't say we have $240,000, then we don't know what we're dealing with.
I think if you put out an RFP and say like, this is what we want, please, or like do scenario A, B, C,
Yeah.
and let them bid on it. That's,
Yeah.
I think we're kind of doing the horse.
Except we don't have a design. We've done that with the RFP. We really tried to make it specific so that we could do like apples to apples comparison of one vendor to another. But ultimately, we weren't getting anything that could translate to what we could use on our playground because we don't know how to design a playground. So we need to get one of them on board and working with us.
What's staff opinion on prioritizing playground? Do you have any idea?
If it should be prioritized or not in comparison to other projects, or what's the question?
Yeah, I mean, or like, did staff have input on, like, were they on any of the task forces or?
Has that been asked?
We have,
Yeah, there was a survey that we.
There was?
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, Monica, our health aide is on the team. We have Courtney, one of the teachers is on the team. Andy, of course. What other staff? Emily Richardson. Let me see. Task force members. Fixing the surface was very high priority among staff.
Understood. why that
Michaela
would be.
Bruman Schinkel is on it. She's the Kinder Club director. I think it's an indication of kind of the overall priority that the community is placing in it, and that I had 15 people volunteering for this task force.
Mhm.
Where it had 0 people for advocacy.
Yeah,
It's not as fun, but. What else could I
I
share?
have a big fan club for fixing the boiler.
was that just one very loud fan?
Couple of them did.
We didn't have to use it this much this winter. That was good.
That's my concern too, and I think we also have to vote to continue past 9:30. Is whether we're cutting off the ability to fund things that will make the school building environment habitable, because I've heard from at least some people, I don't know if it's all people who are in the older building or what, that it can get pretty dreadful, and I know we've had to move kids around when it's gotten too hot, and that seems like it's a pretty important sort of quality of life for the kids and the staff and the teachers.
Well,
On
most of that comes
campus.
from the old building.
What was that?
Most of that comes from the old
The older
building.
building.
Right.
There's no air conditioning.
Well, the discussion on the campus planning committee, Karen, is that we would have budget for that next year. Like playground this year and campus planning next year. or the HVAC.
And we can't do all of it.
So I'll make a motion to extend the meeting until 9:45.
All right, thank you, Director Hyde. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Director Hartman. All those in favor say aye.
I,
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries.
I very much appreciate the concern over, whether this is prioritizing the playground over, other possibilities. But I think it's important to note that a majority of this budget money is coming not out of any fund that would be able to pay for that. So 85, if it was around 245, 85 would be coming out of the general fund balance. Where the 100 from community service fund, that has to be spent on something community facing. The 15 from the PTO, that's what they raised it for. And using the capital campaign money, I know, or I feel the intent of that campaign was not to put a new window in an existing building. The intent of that campaign was to add value to our, facilities. So it should be used for something that's being added to the facilities in some way and not just, replacing a window. So I think we're making a decision basically on $85,000 here and not the 245.
And I just wanted to clarify that we have the playground task force charter, which the board approved last month, where we shared our vision and the objectives that we are working towards. And number 6 is determining funds available to allocate to the project in the next year. So that's what I'm trying to do.
There seems like there's open questions. There was a comment. We gotta ask Kinder Club if they're okay with it, right? Shouldn't we have that?
She
before
said
we vote?
65,000, but it's not clear to me that they need to hold on to as much of that.
And let me speak to that too. Technically, the board can override that.
Right, but I would love their input.
Yeah, so their input is that they have about 122,000 in their budget. They are revenue based programs, in their fund, they have 122,000 that could be used on projects or investments. They want to use it on increasing staff in salaries. As you can see, the hourly wages are relatively low, so some of it will go towards that. Some of it may go towards hiring an additional supervisor, because the current supervisor just went down in the number of hours and the director works part-time. So those are the expenses they're looking at. Other than that, they don't have a lot of expenses. So the input is that right now they're feeling like they could contribute 65,000. I think though that there could be some space for probably another 15 or 20, and they can still afford the things I just mentioned. But the supervisor one is a slightly newer one, and I'd have to run a calculation on that. But there's no doubt 65,000 is available.
Michaela has been out of the office and
Yes.
been able to attend the most recent meetings, but
She's
she had
attending a
committed
family
to
emergency.
65,000.
Current fund balance is at the audited fund balance is at 2.7 million.
And we're at 30% where our policy says,
30.6.
We're at 30.6, so
and
you
our
could
policy
probably
says
use-
20%.
yeah, you probably use a third of this for capital.
I think actually isn't the policy 25% and legally it's 20? Like we can't go under 20? Like
There's
bond requirements wise, but our policy is 25. So our.
It's 20.
Is it?
We can look that up.
Look it up.
Yeah. You have it on here?
504. Yeah, with our kindergarten not being full this past year, we lost about $200,000 in revenue, which is about what we're trying to invest in this playground.
20. Well, and I think the
Policy
question,
20.
Remember 20.
I believe you.
once upon a time was 15% to 40%. As we just dug through the minutes.
So our policy is in line with the bond requirements. And we're 10%. Okay.
Yeah, so when we had the conversation that if we were only using the fund balance and we had the fund for community fund, and we were using 65,000 of that, plus the capital campaign, for example. I updated a vendor saying our budget is about 100,000. And just immediately, we can't work with you. So we just need to be realistic about what it's going to cost, and we want to continue planning for this, or if we don't want to continue planning for it.
Is it the same vendor who would do the tear out, replace the surface and do all the other stuff? Or are we looking at multiple vendors?
Potentially, it depends on the cost. If there's a financial benefit to using multiple vendors, and we can get away with it, then yeah.
Can you just pull it all over?
Yeah, give me a shovel.
Over the summer.
20 volunteers.
But if we have recess all day with that, destroy as much then.
So we're looking at demo vendors separately from playground vendors, and that's what I'm showing here. At our meeting just yesterday, we talked about Albrecht Company, Dugout, McDowell Landscapes. It's possible we could save some money by direct contracting with a demo vendor that is also doing concrete work, because we need to do some concrete work anyway. Like extending the sidewalk that should be there. Yeah, on the south side of the building. From the parking lot to Como. And then we have these playground vendors that we're looking at. And we could work with just the playground vendor because they all have subcontractors that can do all that work too. So we're at the moment trying to figure out which vendor we can work with. But we need a design to directly compare cost, but we also need to know what we can afford. We're also addressing water and foundation issues with this plan, because we currently get water in the boiler room. So kind of the overall plan is to try to mitigate that, which is why we're talking to these first three vendors here.
Yeah, we're trying to get the best deal we can. For each phase. Some of the more expensive is getting rid of the surface, and then also like what kind of climbing equipment you want to put in. Also, I mean, probably if there's any artificial grass or anything like that. That's pretty expensive. So these are all considerations.
Mhm.
I mean, it seems to me like there's some very foundational, no pun intended, things that need to be fixed. Both from a safety and a building maintenance standpoint. And I think it's in our best interest to do that sooner than later. I think the fun stuff that's like, do we put in artificial turf or do we, do something else? That will very much depend on what we have left in the budget after addressing kind of these big things. And I guess in my mind, I see the safety and the long-term viability of like our building as important investments that we need to make. And I think it's in our best interest to get those quotes and to understand what the cost of those building maintenance issues are. And then from there, we can scale our actual playground to meet the budget in a responsible way. But I think continuing to put off the maintenance and walking through the moon craters of the current landscape is not really sustainable for much longer, and we can't not fix it either. Last spring it was even worse than it is now, so.
Maybe off of that, would HVAC installation, things like that, removing boiler, whatever, fixing that, would that damage the playground?
Good question. No,
I mean,
they wouldn't be driving there.
I figured not, but wanted to check.
If you're doing anything big, they're gonna come in on Van Slyke.
Right,
And move it up with a crane.
yeah.
When I had the smaller unit replaced just recently, it went to the parking lot.
Yes.
Put it on the crane and lifted it way over past the entryway.
Just thinking if, the boiler can't come out any other way because on the playground side or
Yeah.
whatever, then that would defeat a purpose as well.
Yeah, I asked a vendor about that when we were there. Just letting them know we want to replace the windows and what if we had to drive big equipment in. He said port in place, we couldn't drive on, so, but the wood chip option, we can drive on, no problem. If we put concrete over there, we could drive on it. So, yeah, it's on our radar to make sure it's gonna work with our other plans to do the improvements. All right, other questions?
How visible is it going to be to the community?
How visible will
The
what
new
be
playground?
to the outside of school community?
Yes, I mean, if it is going to help with, bringing in new students. I don't, are there considerations made to make it visible, fairly accessible, kind of like an ad for this tool?
Mhm.
Those play dates that we're having right now would be really cool on a new.
Yeah,
The tours.
and we're gonna bring District 10 into the conversation too, so the community at large will see it and be aware of it.
What kind of grant funding, like amounts, have you been able to explore from the opportunities that you found? The 10 out of 100?
It depends. Some of them are just like 5,000, but there's some that are like 40 to 50,000. So it depends. And hopefully we can figure that out too. Other discussion?
What would the number be if we just voted on the amount that Kinder Club has committed?
65,000.
Yeah, so be 35 less than, so it'd be like a
120.
Huh? You just walk through the numbers one more time.
And point of order that it's 9:45. 2:45.
This would be 200,000. Yeah. Um. Would you like to table this till the next meeting
I would.
or extend?
Would. And I think we should have a little bit more background information on, I fully support it, don't get me wrong. But the questions like, what won't we do if we do this? It seemed kind of ambiguous the way we answer that. And just kind of get a clear answer of, if we do this, we won't impact anything. Kinder Club is okay with us, you know. I think it would help having that information. And then even if it needs to be more, then we can have that discussion, right? Since we didn't get to it last week.
Yeah, there was a lot going on. All right, I'll make a motion to table this to the next meeting. Is there a second?
A second.
Thank you, Dr. Kurtzinga. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Motion carries. All right, I know we're at 9:46, but we do need to set a date for a special board meeting. If we could do that just really quickly. I'd like to propose we meet in a special board meeting on May 23rd. It is a Thursday at 6:30 p.m. So I'll make that motion. Is there a second?
I will be going to.
Move on to-
Are we in discussion yet? Did you get a
I said
second?
second.
I got a second from Director Albers, who is not able to make it.
Or
I'll remove my motion. Is there another motion?
Is it 16?
I was gonna say the 16.
May, Kirsten.
Are you here 16?
No, I'm here, but I have very committed plans already that night.
Mhm. We could look at not Thursdays, if Mondays would work.
I could do Monday.
Do Mondays work?
I will be going to the meeting.
Monday would work, except governance is on the 20th. And the 13th, I will be on an airplane. Or just off.
is the 16th out for anyone else?
16th would work.
I could do the 16th.
Okay. All right, I'll move to meet May 16th. That's a Thursday at 6:30 p.m. Is there a second? Thank you, Director Albers. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Say nay. We have a special meeting set. With the agenda being the executive director decision.
Are we adjourned?
We need to approve the new election dates.
Okay. That's under the consent agenda. I'll ask for unanimous consent to approve the consent agenda. Any objections?
It's not under there. Do you want me to add it to it? It's under
Yes.
governance.
And there's
Under
policies you wanted approved too.
Two, and yes, I mean, they can wait.
We'll
but
wait
everything
on
is-
those. But
And we need,
please make a motion to approve the board election dates.
I'll make a motion, to, the currently approved dates are May 2nd to 10th, and because we extended the nomination period, we just gave notice in last week's run brief, so we need to give at least 30 days notice to the election window. Proposal is to move it to May 20th to the 28th. 28th is a Tuesday because Monday is a holiday.
Thank you, Director Hartman. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Director Hyde. Discussion? I'll ask for unanimous consent for this one. Any objections? All right, we have our election dates approved. Thank you. All right, it is 9:50 and our meeting is now adjourned without objection.